welcome back, viewers. You're watching NewsX and I'm Sandeep Mehta. Now, a crucial judgment is being passed by the Supreme Court. This is on the stray dogs case. The pronouncement of judgment has started. A bench of Justices Vikram Nath, Sandeep Mehta and NV Anjaria had reserved its verdict on the 29th of January. The issue of stray dog management gained national attention last year after a bench of Justices J.B. Pardiwala and R. Mahadevan directed Delhi municipal authorities to round up and shelter stray dogs, drawing protests from animal rights groups. That order triggered widespread protests by animal rights groups and was later modified by the present three-judge bench. In November last year, the bench had passed a slew of directions to the authorities to ensure the removal of stray dogs from public places such as schools, hospitals, bus stands, railway stations and sports complexes. The court had directed that dogs must be shifted to shelters and must not be released back to the same place from where they were picked. The bench had also issued directions banning the feeding of dogs in streets except in designated feeding spots. Let's go across to my colleague Rumi, who's joining me from the newsroom with the updates on that. Rumi, have any observations been made by the Supreme Court so far that we have accessed?
Yes, Kriti. Well, we have now accessed details from the entire judgment that the Supreme Court gave out in the stray dogs verdict. Remember, this is a verdict on a plea filed by animal rights lovers after the initial pronouncement of a verdict by the Supreme Court on the ABC rules that were earlier announced. The judgment I'll read out. The Supreme Court has dismissed all applications seeking recall of the November 7 judgment in the stray dogs matter. The Supreme Court has upheld November system of procedures issued by the Animal Welfare Board of India and said challenges to the SOP do not merit acceptance. The Supreme Court has also stated that animal birth control framework introduced in 2001 suffered from lack of planning and inadequate infrastructure expansion, and that the system, the SOPs that were given out by the Supreme Court as well as the Animal Welfare Board of India were not followed as they were supposed to be. And the court has also observed that sterilization and vaccination drives were carried out sporadically after the ABC framework introduced in 2001 without institutional depth or proper long-term planning, which is why these concerns have now come out. Yes, Kriti.
Right. Rumi, thank you for sharing that with us. In fact, viewers, let's give you details of what the Supreme Court has said. It says that it has divided the judgment in three parts and has given detailed consideration to applications seeking recall of November 7 judgment. Supreme Court also said that it has dismissed all the prior applications. Sambhav is joining me. Sambhav, the court has given its verdict. Take us through it.
Well, absolutely. Delivering the judgment as we speak, and the Supreme Court is considering all the options here and as to what exactly is to be done. And there are few important pointers. As you rightly pointed out, the top court has dismissed all applications seeking the recall of the earlier judgment of the Supreme Court, November 7 judgment of the Supreme Court in the stray dog case, and upheld that the standard operating procedure issued by the Animal Welfare Board of India is to be upheld, and also said that challenges to these SOPs do not merit acceptance. And the top court has said that animal birth control framework introduced in 2001 suffered from lack of planning. So here the top court has highlighted the lack of planning and inadequate infrastructure expansion, one of the major contentions by the petitioners in this particular case. And here the top court has also flagged this issue, and the Supreme Court has observed that sterilization and vaccination drives were carried out sporadically without institutional depth or proper long-term planning. And also said that continued inaction by states. See, earlier also that you remember, viewers, for the benefit of our viewers, I would like to inform that earlier Supreme Court, in a way, asked all the chief secretaries to come to the Supreme Court, especially those who have not filed a compliance affidavit, because earlier Supreme Court asked for the compliance affidavit as to what they have done in their respective states to control dog bites and what they are doing when it comes to animal birth control rules. And here the Supreme Court has observed that the sterilization and vaccination drives, were carried out without institutional depth and proper long-term planning, and said that continued inaction by states in implementing animal birth control framework has aggravated the stray dog problem across the country. So here another very important point raised by this judgment of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court is pronouncing the judgment as we speak. And these are the important pointers of the judgment from inside the court. These are what the Supreme Court is. These are the important points which the Supreme Court is highlighting, raising today as we speak. And the court has noted that alarming rise in the dog bite cases, and also quoting few of the reports. The Supreme Court has also noted that Tamil Nadu recorded over 2 lakh cases in first 4 months of the year, and said that the top court has said that repeated dog bite incidents at IGI airport reflect grave inadequacy in the stray dog management. So it's not just limited to 1 or 2 states, but many of the states who have not taken the vaccination, sterilization, animal birth control rules, not taken them seriously. The Supreme Court is flagging all these issues. Court has also noted that dog bite incidents are being reported from airports, residential colonies, major urban centers across the country. And also, Supreme Court has said that such incidents negatively impact public confidence in the urban governance and civil administration. So here the gravity is very much clear, and again the Supreme Court is flagging these issues, and this time categorically the Supreme Court is putting forth as to what exactly is the problem, and says that incidents negatively impact public confidence in the urban governance and civil administration. And also, as observed, the top court bench is observing that harm caused by the stray dog attack is not just statistical in nature, but unfathomable. And also, the material on record, the Supreme Court is saying that the material on record shows earlier direction issued on August 22nd last year and November 7th have not effectively reached the ground level. Another very important issue raised by Supreme Court, and warned that non-compliance with its direction will invite contempt proceedings. Again, very strong remark by the Supreme Court bench that non-compliance will invite contempt proceedings and disciplinary action.
Stay on with me, Sambhav. In fact, once again, let's take our viewers through the observations that the court has put in its judgment. The Supreme Court says repeated dog bite incidents at Indira Gandhi International Airport reflect great inadequacy in stray dog management. The court also noted that dog bite incidents are being reported from airports, residential colonies and major urban centers across the country. Supreme Court is also referring to an incident of a German tourist who was bitten by a dog in Gujarat. The court said such incidents reflect negatively about public confidence in urban governance and civic administration. Court also observed the harm caused by stray dogs is not just statistical, it is also unfathomable. Further, the court says that the material on record shows earlier directions issued on 22nd of August and November 7th have not effectively reached the ground level. Supreme Court warned that non-compliance with its directions will invite contempt proceedings, disciplinary action and tortious liability against states. big judgment there put forward by the Supreme Court in the stray dogs management case. Court saying it is dividing its judgment in 3 parts and has also invited, asked and warned that non-compliance with its directions that were also issued on 22nd of August and November 7 last year will invite contempt proceedings, disciplinary action and tortious liability against the states. Sambhav, in fact, in para 85, the court has concluded that it finds no reason to interfere with the November SOP that was issued. The challenge does not merit acceptance in the light of conclusions here and above. All IAS challenging the SOPs stand dismissed. The court has given a clear verdict there. Sambhav, help us through more details.
Well, absolutely. Here, the Supreme Court is very much clear while delivering its judgment today, and these are the important points raised by the bench, and has very clearly said and rather warned that non-compliance with its directions will invite contempt proceedings and disciplinary actions in case non-compliance is done by the states. And also remember, the Supreme Court, this bench earlier also has made it clear while calling all the chief secretaries to be physically present in the Supreme Court, especially those who have not fallen in line to what the top court has said, and especially the animal birth control rules. But also need is to understand the lack of the infrastructure while implementing the animal birth control rules. Because see, this is not the first time the Supreme Court has come down heavily on especially when it comes to non-compliance and flagging these issues. And there was in a way fight seen in the Supreme Court, verbal fight between dog lovers and those who were flagging the issue of the stray dog menace. And on one hand, the dog lovers were saying that and everything should be done with the lens, with the prism of humanity. And on the other hand, those who suffered the dog bite, they were saying earlier in the Supreme Court that yes, the continuous cases are impacting. There is a sense of fear among children and elderly. And I remember earlier when the matter was in the Supreme Court, arguments were going on. Solicitor General Sandeep Mehta also flagged certain issues, especially when it comes to stray dog bites and the kind of fear among children and elderly going out in the park. And here, keeping all those concerns in mind, the Supreme Court has pronounced this judgment, has dismissed all the applications seeking the recall of the earlier November 7th.
Right. Stay on with me,